Happy 57th, Denise. That's what the giant cake read, my name written in thick blue icing glowing under the lights of a banquet hall. But I was not there to blow out those candles. I wasn't even invited. I sat alone on my couch that Saturday night, scrolling through Facebook when a live stream popped up on my feed. It was my own family gathered at Harborview Banquet Hall. My son Andre, my daughter Maya, and my daughter-in-law Sloane, laughing, clinking glasses, posing for selfies. And right in the center was a cake meant for me. I froze, my heart hammering. I could hear Sloane's voice through the phone speaker, syrupy sweet, "She's not coming." Then laughter erupted around her. My eyes burned. For a moment I couldn't breathe. How could they celebrate my birthday while pretending I didn't exist? How could they stand there smiling while I sat in the dark, listening to my own erasure? I glanced at the clock, 8:17 p.m. The party was in full swing. On the screen, Andre lifted a glass of champagne. "To Mom," he said, forcing a grin. The crowd cheered, but not one of them had thought to call me, invite me, or even check if I was okay. I felt something shift inside me. The sting of betrayal gave way to a cold determination. I reached for my coat. From the drawer beside me, I slid a small black USB into my purse. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, quietly, carefully. Tonight the truth was going to surface whether they were ready or not. With trembling hands, I locked my front door, stepped into the night, and headed straight toward the banquet hall where my own family was celebrating my birthday, without me. My name is Denise Holloway, and I am 57 years old. For 27 years, I worked as a clerk for the United States Postal Service in Detroit. Every morning I woke before dawn, bundled in my blue uniform, and carried the mail that kept my community connected. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and it was honest. I took pride in it because it allowed me to provide for my children when my late husband Thomas passed away far too young. I raised my son Andre and my daughter Maya on a modest paycheck and a mountain of determination. I remember ironing their school uniforms at midnight after double shifts, pinching pennies so they could go on field trips, and skipping meals myself to make sure there was enough for them. I never complained. My children were my life. When Andre grew older, he found success in sales. That's when he met Sloane Parker. She was sharp, stylish, and confident, too confident if you asked me. At first I welcomed her. She was family now, and I wanted peace. But soon I noticed the small ways she dismissed me. A smirk when I wore my old postal uniform to family dinners. A whispered comment about how outdated my home decor looked. Little cuts that grew deeper with time. After Thomas died in 2019, the house we built together became my anchor. Every brick reminded me of his laughter, his patience, his sacrifices. It was more than property. It was memory, legacy, love. I told myself that one day when I was gone, it would be theirs. But not yet. Not while I still lived and breathed inside these walls. That house, however, is exactly what drew Sloane's hungry eyes. She often made suggestions at the dinner table, carefully worded, almost sweet. "Wouldn't it be easier for you to downsize, Denise? Maybe move into a condo near us. Andre and I could manage this place better." She said, manage like my life was a business to be handled. Andre usually stayed quiet, nodding at whatever she proposed, as though her voice carried more weight than mine. Maya, my youngest, is different. She works as a nurse and has a tender heart, but she hates confrontation. When tension rises, she folds into silence, staring at her plate. That silence hurt me almost as much as Sloane's words. It felt like watching my daughter slip away, choosing comfort over loyalty. Still, I endured. I told myself to stay patient, that my children would remember who stood by them all those years. But then something happened that broke the thin thread of peace. A neighbor, Rosa Delgado, stopped me one afternoon. She had noticed a man snapping photos of my house front porch mailbox, even the windows. She thought maybe it was an appraiser. My stomach knotted. Why would an appraiser come without my knowledge? That night, while cleaning the kitchen, I found a folder of papers Sloane had slipped into my stack of mail. She claimed it was routine insurance paperwork. But as I flipped through, the language was murky, filled with terms about transfer of authority and guardianship. My gut told me something was wrong, so I made a decision. I reached out to attorney Naomi Brooks, a woman known for her sharp mind and steady hands. She listened carefully, nodded slowly, and told me I wasn't imagining things. "They're trying to corner you, Denise," she warned. "Don't sign a thing." From that day forward, I carried every piece of mail straight to her office. I made copies of texts, saved voicemails, and followed her advice to keep calm and quiet. That was the beginning of my secret war, a war my family didn't even know had already started. The first real crack appeared in the form of a new lock. One afternoon, I returned from grocery shopping and found a shiny brass knob on my back gate. My old key no longer fit. Andre told me Sloan had called a locksmith for security reasons. I wasn't consulted, not even warned. When I asked why, Andre shrugged and said Sloan thought it was best. His voice was apologetic, but his eyes avoided mine. My home, the one place I should have felt safe, suddenly felt tampered with. The next blow came at dinner a week later. Sloan had cooked pasta and poured wine, all smiles and hospitality. But halfway through, she slipped in her real agenda. "Denise," she said, tilting her glass toward me, "this house is getting too much for you, isn't it? The stairs, the roof repairs the taxes. Andre and I can take over. You could move into a nice condo just minutes away." Her tone was smooth, but her eyes were sharp. I put my fork down. "This house is mine, Sloan. Your father-in-law and I built it together. I'm not ready to leave." The smile froze on her face, then stretched into something brittle. "Of course," she said, but her hand tightened around her glass, and I could see Andre shifting uncomfortably. Maya stared at her plate, chewing slowly, as if pretending not to hear. The silence screamed louder than words. That night, I lay awake replaying her suggestion, each syllable dripping with condescension. Move into a condo. It wasn't an offer, it was a plan, and I knew she would not let it go. Soon, other signs appeared. I discovered a group text thread labeled Family Updates. It included Andre and Maya, but not me. When I confronted Maya about it, she bit her lip and whispered, "It's mostly just small things, Mom." Small things, like photos of renovations. Sloan wanted discussions about managing my mortgage and details of a party that at the time I didn't realize was about me. The exclusion cut deep. It wasn't just about messages. It was about erasing my voice, my place, my authority. Then came the letter. A cream-colored envelope arrived, stamped from the county recorder's office. Inside was a notice referencing a pre-filing inquiry. The language was dense, but one phrase leapt out at me, possible transfer of property deed. My stomach churned. I hadn't authorized anything. I rushed the letter straight to Naomi. She skimmed it, her brow furrowing. "They're preparing to move," she said quietly, "and they're counting on you to stay silent." Her warning haunted me. I began to watch everything more closely. I noticed Sloan hovering near the mail pile when she visited, sliding papers into the stack with a casual flick of her hand. I noticed Andre growing more distant, parroting her phrases about responsibility and modern solutions. Even Maya began asking gentle but pointed questions. "Mom, wouldn't it be easier if you let Andre handle the bills?" Each word pierced me. Still, I kept my composure. At Naomi's urging, I bought a small recorder legal in our state if one party consents. The first time I pressed record, my hands trembled. But when I caught Sloan's voice on tape, low and conspiratorial, the fear turned to steel. Once she signed, she told someone on the phone, "Everything will be ours. Andre just has to keep her calm until then." I played that recording for Naomi and her investigator, Caleb. Their faces hardened. Caleb promised to trace the call, and within days he uncovered emails between Sloan and a mobile notary service. The subject line read, "Quiet signing elderly client." My blood boiled. Elderly client. That's what I was to her, a mark, a signature to exploit. Meanwhile at home, the pressure mounted. Andre began bringing up money, more often gently but persistently. "Mom, the house needs a new roof. It's a huge expense. Maybe if you—" He stopped when he saw my glare. But the damage was done. He was echoing her script. Then came the cruelest humiliation yet. One Saturday afternoon, I stopped by unannounced at Andre's house. Through the window, I saw them gathered in the living room, Andre, Sloan, and Maya huddled over papers on the coffee table. I rang the bell. They scrambled, shoving the papers into a folder. When Sloan opened the door, her smile was stretched too wide. "Denise." "What a surprise." I asked what they were working on. "Just bills," she said lightly. But as I glanced at the folder, I caught a glimpse of a title page, Parker Holdings LLC. My heart pounded. Why would my family's name be missing, replaced with hers? I left before the tears could fall, walking briskly to my car, clutching my purse like a shield. That night, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the faded wallpaper Thomas and I had chosen together. I whispered to the empty room, "They're trying to take it all." But grief wasn't the only thing I felt. Beneath the sorrow was anger, an anger that sharpened into resolve. I would not let them strip me of the one place that still carried his memory. And so, with Naomi's guidance, I began to gather everything: letters, recordings, emails, even screenshots from Maya's hesitant texts. Piece by piece, I built a wall of evidence, silently waiting for the day when the truth would break through their lies. The night of the banquet arrived, and I told myself I wouldn't look. I told myself I would sit at home with a cup of tea and pretend it wasn't happening. But curiosity and pain pushed me to the car. I drove slowly down Jefferson Avenue until I saw the glowing lights of Harborview Banquet Hall. Through the glass doors, I could already hear the music. I parked across the street, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached. Laughter spilled out every time someone entered. Guests in glittering dresses and pressed suits streamed in carrying gifts wrapped in shiny paper. From where I sat, I could see the banner above the stage. Happy 57th Mom. My name, my age, my identity all paraded for the world, as if I were inside smiling at them. But I wasn't. I stepped out of the car, heart thudding, and edged closer to the tall windows. The sight knocked the air from my chest. There it was, a towering cake, 3 tiers decorated in gold and blue frosting. Across the front in sweeping letters was written, "Happy Birthday, Denise." I pressed a hand to the glass. On the other side, my son Andre stood with his arm around Sloane. Maya lingered beside them, clutching a glass of wine, looking like she wanted to vanish. Guests leaned in, whispering, asking where I was. I saw Sloane tilt her head and smirk. "She's not able to join," she announced with a mock sympathetic shrug. The room rippled with laughter. My knees weakened. It was as if I had been erased, declared invisible while they toasted in my name. Andre stepped forward, lifting his champagne. "To Mom," he said. His smile looked forced, but he clinked glasses with Sloane anyway. The hall echoed with cheer. My birthday, my family, my children, yet none of it belonged to me. And then came the words that cut deeper than all the rest. Sloane raised her glass high, her eyes glinting under the lights. "To new beginnings and a new home. A new home." I staggered back, the phrase ringing in my ears. I knew exactly what she meant. She wasn't just celebrating a party. She was celebrating victory, the home she thought she had already stolen. Tears blurred my vision. For a few seconds, I wanted to run, to drive away, to collapse in my empty living room and admit defeat. But then something inside me hardened. I wiped my cheeks, lifted my chin, and whispered to myself, "No more." I had been patient. I had endured the jabs, the exclusion, the manipulation. But tonight, under the glittering lights and hollow toasts, I understood. They wanted my erasure complete, and if I didn't act, they would succeed. I turned from the window and walked back to my car. Inside my purse, the small black USB felt heavy, almost alive. On it were the recordings, the emails, the proof that every smile in that hall was built on deceit. As I started the engine, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but they were steady. I wasn't just a forgotten guest anymore. I was the storm waiting to break through their celebration. The hall loomed behind me, laughter spilling into the night. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but this time not in fear. This time in resolve. They had turned my birthday into a stage for betrayal. I was about to turn it into the stage for truth. In the weeks leading up to that night, I had prepared more carefully than my family could have imagined. While they planned my erasure, I planned my defense. It began with a hushed meeting in attorney Naomi Brooks's office. The blinds were drawn, the hum of the city muted behind thick glass. Across the desk, Naomi looked me square in the eyes. "Denise, they're not just scheming. They're moving fast. We need evidence, and we need it solid." That's where Caleb Morris, her investigator, stepped in. A former paralegal with a knack for digital trails, he pulled out a laptop and clicked open a folder. "Look at this," he said. On the screen was an email exchange between Sloan and a mobile notary. The subject line chilled me: "Quiet signing elderly client." The message detailed a proposed meeting urging secrecy. Next, Caleb revealed a wire transfer receipt. $20,000 had moved from an account belonging to Parker Holdings, LLC, a company Sloan had quietly formed, into the account of a so-called consultant. "This is your house money," Naomi explained. "They're setting up to claim it under this LLC." But the most damning piece was an audio file. My own recorder had caught Sloan's voice, sharp and calculating. "Once we get her signature, the deed is ours. Andre just has to keep her calm until then." Hearing those words played back in Naomi's office was like swallowing ice. Yet instead of shattering me, it solidified my resolve. I wasn't powerless. I had proof. So when I stood outside Harborview Banquet Hall that night, watching them toast to new beginnings, I wasn't just a forgotten mother. I was a woman carrying the truth in her purse. The moment came quickly. I walked through the glass doors, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Conversations faltered, music dipped, heads turned. Mom Andre's voice cracked. His champagne glass trembled in his hand. Sloan's smile faltered, but she recovered fast. "Denise." What a surprise! Her tone was all sugar, but her eyes flickered with panic. I didn't speak. Instead, I motioned to Naomi, who followed close behind me. She carried a laptop under her arm, calm as ever. Within seconds, she had the DJ pause the music. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "may we have just a few minutes of your attention?" The screen behind the stage flickered to life. Guests leaned forward, murmuring, confused. Then with a simple click, Naomi inserted the USB drive I had guarded so fiercely. First came the email thread projected larger than life. Guests read the words, "Quiet signing elderly client," gasps rippling through the crowd. Then the wire transfer appeared, the Parker Holdings name glowing in black and white. Finally, the audio played. Sloan's voice filled the hall, undeniable and venomous. "Once we get her signature, the deed is ours." Silence crashed over the room. Andre's face drained of color. Maya covered her mouth with trembling hands. Sloan stood frozen, her glass halfway to her lips. And me, I finally exhaled. This was no longer their party. This was my moment. The hall erupted in whispers. The words from the recording seemed to hang in the air long after the speakers went silent. Guests exchanged shocked glances. Some turned to stare directly at Sloan, their faces twisted with disbelief. Others looked toward Andre, waiting for him to speak. Naomi didn't give them time. She stepped forward, her voice firm, professional. "Earlier today, a judge signed a temporary restraining order preventing any transfer of property from Ms. Holloway's name. Any attempt to do so will be considered fraud and subject to immediate legal action." She held up a stamped document for everyone to see. The embossed seal caught the stage lights, shimmering like a verdict already delivered. Sloan's glass clinked against the table as she set it down too quickly. "This is ridiculous." She snapped, her tone sharp but trembling. "You can't just walk in here and accuse me of— You accused yourself." Naomi cut in, pointing to the screen where the transcript of the recording now scrolled in bold letters. "Once we get her signature, the deed is ours." The words looked damning, undeniable. All eyes swung back to Sloan. Her cheeks flushed deep red. She tried to laugh, but the sound came out brittle. That's out of context." I finally stepped forward. My voice was low, but carried across the room. "Context. You threw me a birthday party and didn't invite me. You used my name, my age, my life as decoration for your lie. And now the world hears your real gift, your greed." Andre shifted, his face pale. "Mom, I didn't know." His voice cracked. Naomi pressed play again, letting another clip spill through the speakers, Sloan whispering, "Andre just has to keep her calm until then." Andre froze. Gasps swept the crowd. He dropped his champagne flute, the glass shattering against the tile. You said we were just helping her," he whispered, turning to Sloan, his eyes wide. Sloan's mask cracked. "Don't act innocent, Andre. You went along with it. You wanted the house, too." The words slammed into the hall like a slap. Andre's shoulders sagged. He didn't deny it. His silence was enough. Maya stepped forward, then her voice shaking, but strong. "I can't believe this. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to make waves, but this is theft. This is betrayal." Her eyes brimmed with tears as she turned toward me. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have stood up for you." The guests watched silent, riveted. For once the roles were reversed. Sloane stood exposed. Andre humiliated, and I, long ignored, was finally heard. Naomi folded the papers neatly back into her folder. "Consider this your official notice," she said to Sloane. Her tone clipped. "If you attempt to interfere with Ms. Holloway's property again, you will face civil liability and possibly criminal charges." Sloane's lips quivered. She grabbed her purse, glaring around as if the entire room had betrayed her. Then, with a sharp scrape of heels, she stormed toward the exit. The heavy doors slammed shut behind her. Andre sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I thought she was just protecting us," he muttered. "I didn't know it would come to this." I walked closer, standing over him. My voice didn't tremble this time. "You planned my birthday without me so you could steal my home. That isn't protection, Andre. That's betrayal." He lifted his head, eyes red. "Mom, please. I made a mistake. I'll fix it." I shook my head. "You'll fix yourself. This house is not yours to take. It never was." Maya reached for my hand, squeezing it tight. "We'll get through this, Mom," she said softly. For the first time that night, I felt a flicker of warmth. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring, some shaking their heads in disgust, others whispering about lawyers and family greed. The banner above the stage. "Happy 57th." Mom fluttered in the air from the draft of the opening doors. For a moment, it looked like it might tear loose its false cheer, unraveling just like the lies beneath it. As the last guest drifted away, Naomi turned to me. "You did the right thing," she said. "You protected what was yours." I nodded, the weight in my chest finally easing. Tonight they had tried to erase me. Instead, I stood taller than ever. The next morning, the house felt different. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the same worn tiles I had scrubbed for decades. But instead of heaviness, I felt clarity. I carried a watering can to the porch and tended to the orchids Thomas once gave me. Their petals had survived storms and winters, blooming, still just like me. I thought about the night before the banner, the cake, the laughter that wasn't mine. But more than that, I thought about the truth finally spoken aloud. For so long I had stayed quiet, hoping patience and love would be enough. Yet silence almost cost me everything. I realized then that protecting my dignity and my home was not selfish, it was necessary. Family can bring joy, but family can also bring betrayal. What matters is drawing the line, refusing to let greed write your story. I know now that documents must be read carefully, signatures guarded, and trust given wisely. I know that even when your own children waver, you must stand tall in your own worth. As I placed the watering can down, I whispered into the morning air, "Thomas, I kept our promise. Our home is safe." And for the first time in years, I smiled not for anyone else's approval, but for myself.